Please like my videos, please subscribe to my channel, and please press the bell icon so that you get to know when my latest video has come. And to learn more and to find a video relevant to you, please do check out my videos list.
Hello and namaskar and adab to all my friends from your friend astrologer and guide Irfan, once more with you from your very own channel Astro Assurance. Many times we wonder about whether a certain yoga in a horoscope is a good yoga, especially if there are aspects of malefics on it. On the other hand, we also get worried about certain doshas, and if there is an aspect of a benefic on it, then we are in this dilemma: will that dosha give me bad results, or has the aspect of the benefic reduce the challenge giving tendencies of that dosha? So we are always in this dilemma. So in this today's video about yogas and doshas versus aspects, I want to discuss and give you some tips on how to see whether a yoga is good yoga has been reduced in strength because of the aspect of a malefic on it, or if a dosha has been reduced because of the aspect of a benefic on it, and even if the malefic dosha has been further become more malefic because of the aspect of another malefic on it. And same thing for a good yoga, where if another aspect of a benefic happens on it, then does it become a good or a better yoga? So first and foremost, a simple rule: malefics tend to give you more challenging results, and they are more capable of bringing about challenging results than benefic planets. And there is more control of the yogas and the doshas on our life in the Kendra houses, and we have less control over the results of those houses. However, we retain some control if the yogas or the doshas happen in the trine houses or in the upachya houses, except the 6th house, the other upachya houses. So if you want to know whether a dosha, for example, let's start with the doshas first, whether they are reduced in malefic tendencies because there is an aspect of a benefic on it, then the simple rule is to see whether how strong is the benefic planet itself and how tight an aspect it is on that dosha. For example, if the dosha is, say, a Shrapic dosha between Rahu and Saturn, this is a very strong dosha and one of the most malefic doshas that can happen. And if this malefic dosha is happening, say for example the 4th house, and if Jupiter is aspecting that dosha from the 10th house, then how much of a challenge has been reduced in the domestic life where the Shrapic dosha is there by virtue of Jupiter's aspect on it? How do we know? So say for example, if Saturn and Rahu are in a tight conjunction within 5 degrees of each other, say for example Rahu is at 15 degrees and Saturn is at 20 degrees in the 4th house, and Jupiter is 16, 17, 18 degrees in the 10th house, then Jupiter's aspect is a tight aspect on both Rahu and Saturn, because the difference between Jupiter's degrees and between Rahu or Saturn's degrees is plus or minus 1 or 2, 3 degrees. Then the aspect is a tight one. However, here Saturn is definitely aspecting Jupiter back if Rahu is not. So Saturn tends to reduce the benefic giving tendencies of Jupiter because of the mutual aspects, and hence Jupiter's aspect, while on the dosha, will reduce some challenge giving tendencies of the dosha, but it will not reduce that considerably that the dosha doesn't make its presence felt at all. So the dosha is still a powerful dosha. The dosha will still give you challenges about the 4th house and related to the sign and the depositor, which means the ruler of the particular 4th house, but the challenges will still persist, but to an extent will be reduced if Jupiter's aspect is strong. The other thing is, if Jupiter is very strong by virtue of being in a strong directional strength, for example Jupiter is in a good directional strength in the Lagna, but if Jupiter is in the 7th house where it has less directional strength, and Saturn and Rahu are in the Lagna where Saturn and Rahu become more powerful as a dosha together because they are on the Lagna now, then Jupiter's aspect on the dosha will not be as strong as it would have been if it was the other way around. For example, if Saturn and Rahu were in the 7th house but Jupiter was in the Lagna, then Jupiter would have been able to reduce considerably the challenges of the Shrapic dosha by virtue of its aspect from the Lagna on the dosha, Shrapit dosha of Saturn and Rahu. However, mind you, Saturn also has very high directional strength in the 7th house. So Jupiter's tendency to reduce the malefic aspects of the Shrapit dosha are not as reduced as it would be if they were in some other houses. For example, Saturn and Rahu in the 4th house and Jupiter in the 10th house, for example. So these things have to be looked at. The other is how strong the planet itself is in being in a favorable sign. Say for example, if Saturn and Rahu are in a sign where, in the sign of Libra for example, where Saturn is exalted, so here Saturn will not give you as big challenges in spite of being in a Shrapit dosha as much as it would give in Aries sign. So if Saturn and Rahu are in the Aries sign and have an aspect of Jupiter on it, then too the Shrapit dosha will give you more challenging results. However, if on the other hand the Shrapit dosha is in Libra sign where Saturn and Rahu are together and Jupiter is in Aries sign and aspecting it, then the tendency of the dosha to give challenging results is reduced because Saturn is in higher dignity. So here Saturn's dignity is reducing the malefic tendencies of the Shrapit dosha. So these things will also have to be looked into, whether the dosha is in a more powerful sign where it tends to give you more challenging results or tends to give less challenging results, as is the difference between the Shrapit dosha in Aries sign versus the Shrapit dosha in the Libra sign, both under the aspect, for example, of a Jupiter. Now the other thing is, any malefic dosha, however strong the dosha is, if there are two benefic aspects on it, then the tight aspect on it, closer in degrees. For example, Saturn and Rahu, both of them are in the 4th house, and Saturn is at 15 degrees and Rahu is at 20 degrees. And now say Venus or Moon is in the 10th house. Then if Moon is in the 10th house, for example, and Moon is now aspecting the 4th house, of which it is also the Karaka of, then it so happens if the Moon is on similar degrees than like such as Rahu or Saturn, then Moon's aspect on the dosha is strong, while Saturn also aspects Moon back. However, because Moon is the Karaka of the house, so the Moon's tendency to reduce the malefic aspects is reduced considerably. While Saturn is also the Karaka of the 10th house, Saturn will also reduce the benefit giving tendencies of Moon in the 10th house. However, Moon will also reduce the Shrapit dosha of Rahu and Saturn in the 4th house. But if now Jupiter also aspects Saturn and Rahu from the 12th house with its 5th aspect, so now Moon is aspecting that dosha in the 4th house, and Jupiter is also aspecting the dosha from the 12th house, of which Jupiter is the natural ruler of. Then together Jupiter and Moon, and if both the aspects on Saturn and Rahu are tight aspects, if Jupiter is also in the similar degrees like Rahu and Saturn, then the malefic nature of the dosha is considerably reduced. So the more benefic aspects are on the dosha's challenge giving tendency is reduced. The better sign that the dosha is in, from where the dignity of the planet is better, the challenging results also come down. However, if the dosha is in a dusthana, then the challenges become multifold, because the dusthanas will throw up challenge because the dosha has gone into the dusthana. So even if Saturn and the Rahu go into, say for example, the 12th house, which is the strong dusthana, even in Libra, so Saturn is in good dignity. However, because it is still the dusthana, Saturn will give challenging results. So here even two aspects on the dusthana yoga of the dosha, on the dosha and the dusthana, will not considerably reduce as much as they would have reduced the tendency in, say for example, a Kendra house or a trine house. So the malefic planets are really very, very strong in the dusthanas, and they tend to leave their mark. However strong aspects of whatever benefics they are on the dusthanas, the doshas in the dusthanas definitely manifest themselves. On the other hand, a strong yoga, say for example a Gajkesari yoga in the lagna, even if there is malefic aspects on it, because now Jupiter gets dignity and gets directional strength in the lagna, and moon does very well in the lagna, because lagna has Aries energy and moon does very well in Aries sign. So here the Gajkesari yoga is strong. So now if there is just one malefic aspect on it, say for example Saturn's, then the yoga is strong enough to be able to sustain the challenging results that, or the reduced tendency or reduction of the tendency of Saturn to reduce the beneficity of the yoga. So the yoga will still be able to manifest itself. They will not be to the extent to 100% that if there was no aspect on it, but because Saturn's aspect on it is, because Saturn's aspect is on it, so its tendency to give good or beneficial reduce will be reduced by 15 to 20%, say for example. However, if there are two aspects of malefics on it, then there will be definitely a challenge where the strength of the yoga is multifold decreased. This is the thing to be noted. However strong a yoga is, if there is an aspect of a malefic on it, its strength is reduced, may not be to that extent. But the moment of another malefic aspect happens on it, now the effect of two malefics on the yoga acts exponentially and will considerably reduce the strength of the yoga. So that has to be kept in mind. Now other hand, if a yoga and a dosha both are aspecting each other, say for example Shrapit dosha happens in the second house, where Saturn and Rahu are placed in the second house, whereas Jupiter and Moon make a Gajkesari yoga in the 10th house. So now Saturn and Jupiter are not aspecting each other directly, but Jupiter is definitely aspecting Saturn and Rahu with its 5th aspect. However, when Jupiter aspects Rahu and Saturn in the second house with its 5th aspect, Rahu is aspecting Jupiter and Moon back with its 9th aspect, because Rahu has its 9th aspect. So Jupiter and Rahu are aspecting each other, whereas Saturn and Moon are not in the mix, at least from the aspect perspective. So here, whichever is the stronger of the two, so if Jupiter is in higher degrees and in better sign, say for example Jupiter and Moon are in Cancer sign, this is for a Libra ascendant native, and Rahu and Saturn go in the second house in Scorpio. So while Rahu and Saturn will give challenges in the Scorpio sign, but Saturn is the Karaka of Scorpio sign also. Mind you, they are not in the Dusthana, they are in the second house. Jupiter and Moon in the Gajkesari yoga in the Cancer sign are very, very strong, because Moon is in its own sign and Jupiter gets exalted in the Cancer sign. So here the yoga will have a bearing on the dosha and will considerably reduce their maleficity of the Shrapit dosha in the second house. However, Rahu is also aspecting Jupiter and Moon back. So definitely some strength of the yoga is considerably reduced, but the malefic tendency of the dosha is much more higher, much more reduced than the beneficity of the yoga. Now mind you, both of them are Artha houses. The second house is also an Artha house of your livelihood and your saving, whereas the 10th house is also Artha Bhava, but because of being related to your work or your career, which means that the stronger that you work in your career at work, your livelihood and your savings will also increase, and so you will have to put in effort in the manifestation of the 10th house, where the Gajkesari yoga is, so that it manifests or reduces the negative tendency of the Shrapit dosha, and the livelihood can sustain and the savings can sustain. So there will still be challenges because of Saturn reducing the issues from livelihood perspective, reducing the tendency of giving you higher livelihood, and there will be ups and downs every now and then, but to a large extent the Gajkesari yoga will be able to control it, and not too many upheavals, ups and downs will happen. So when you see the yoga or a dosha, keep this in mind, that a malefic dosha, even if there are two aspects of benefits on it, only then will it be reduced in terms of how its ability to give malefic results. However, on the other hand, a good yoga, even if the moment two malefic aspects happen, its strength is considerably reduced in its ability to give good results. So whenever you see in your horoscopes, if there is a yoga, but the yoga is in strong sign connected to the planets, the planets which are together in a sign, if they are strong, if the yoga is very, very strong, then one aspect of one malefic will reduce its tendency, two aspects from two malefics will reduce the goodness giving tendency of the yoga to a large extent. But the same thing will not happen with a dosha. Now on the other hand, if there is a conjunction of a malefic and a benefic together in a certain house, and if there are aspects of one benefic on it, then the benefic's tendency to be able to overpower the malefic, because the conjunction is between the benefic and a malefic, then and the benefic is aspecting it, then the malefic's tendency is reduced and the benefic's tendency to give good results is definitely increased. But if a benefic and a malefic are together in conjunction and now there is a malefic aspect on it, then the challenge giving tendency of two malefics involved in the mix about that house where the conjunction of a benefic and malefic is will be increased. So you will have to look into these in a smaller, finer aspects, whether a yoga or a dosha has been reduced in strength because of the aspect of a benefic or a malefic, or when a yoga or a dosha aspect each other. So as long as you keep these things in mind, and that the yogas or doshas are not in the kendra houses but in the trine houses or the upachya houses, then you will be able to decipher the true strength of the yoga or the dosha accordingly, basis what aspects they are on it, and whether the aspects we are giving you, whether the aspects are adding to the strength of the yoga or the dosha or reducing the strength of the yoga or the dosha. So friends, look into your own horoscopes and see what doshas you have, what yogas you have, what are the aspects on them, how many aspects of benefics are on them, how strong the benefics are, how strong, whether the benefics are in a yoga themselves or not, because then their power increases, and try and manifest those yogas and those doshas accordingly. And also keep in mind the dasha nantar dasha of those doshas and yogas, and try to make a mental note whether a dosha or a yoga did give you challenging results or good results during their dashas and antar dashas, and that will give you an idea whether an aspect on them has worked or not worked, or whether the result on your life has been substantial or not. So friends, like this video, share this video, and if you're looking for a personal consultation from me, please reach out to me at the links given below. Until some other time with some other video, this is your friend astrologer and guide Irfan signing off.